The day before I left to study abroad, my childhood sweetheart laid down the law. No dating, no fighting, and absolutely no skipping class. Then, she slipped me a note, telling me to open it only when I missed her. It read, "When you come back, we'll get married." But during my years abroad, I became bound to a system. The system informed me that my fiancée was keeping a boy who looked just like me by her side. According to the script, by the time I returned, she would be so hopelessly in love with him that even our friends and family would side with him, blaming me. I would become the one who never should have come back. So I decided to delay my return. I held art exhibitions across Europe, befriending masters and charming seasoned veterans of the art world until they were eagerly promoting my work. In less than 5 months, I had branded myself as the art world's new rising star. Invitations and commissions from major players poured in, and my net worth skyrocketed. The system was getting antsy. Shouldn't you be heading back to the States? According to the original timeline, the host is supposed to discover the new male lead by now. I glanced at the time and asked the system, "Are the two of them officially together yet?" After it said no, I frowned. If I don't go back, can't they move the plot along themselves? I've given them plenty of opportunity. Chloe Miller frowned as she read the media coverage about me, then knocked on the door to Amelia Hamilton's office. She handed Amelia her tablet, which was displaying a news article about my dazzling success in Europe. "Didn't Ethan say he was coming back soon?" Chloe asked. "Why is he suddenly building a career over there? Do you think he found out about you and Leo Vance and decided not to return?" Staring at my picture and hearing Leo's name, Amelia felt a flash of guilt. She set the tablet down. "Impossible. Not unless one of you betrayed me." Chloe playfully punched her shoulder. "Betray you? You're the one doing something this messed up, and we've all been covering for you. How can you accuse us? Have you forgotten that Ethan is my friend too?" "Amelia, don't you see the problem here? You've barely contacted him these last few months. He used to call and complain to you about everything over there, but lately, nothing. What exactly is going on with you and Leo? If Ethan finds out, he's never coming back, is he?" Panic seized Amelia at those words. Of course she wanted me to come back. She immediately sent me an iMessage asking when I'd be home, completely forgetting it was the middle of the night for me. Seeing Amelia's flustered state, Chloe grew exasperated. "You'd better deal with Leo before Ethan gets back. Otherwise, how are you going to handle this mess?" "I know what I'm doing." "You know what you're doing? What happens when they meet? Who are you going to choose then?" Chloe rolled her eyes. "If he finds out, I'd like to see how you explain yourself." Chloe, Amelia, and I were all friends from college, having met around the same time. Chloe had witnessed our entire relationship unfold and was a close friend to us both. After graduation, she and Amelia started a company together that became quite successful, deepening their already strong bond. But ever since I went abroad, Chloe felt Amelia had started acting strangely, especially when it came to sponsoring a male college student, something Chloe just couldn't comprehend. Amelia even introduced the guy to her, leaving Chloe feeling sorry for both me and the young man, Leo. Once my career was well established and I had sufficiently burnished my reputation, I announced in an interview that I was finally returning to the United States. The system observed my demeanor and commented that it was like a hawk announcing to the chickens, "I'm coming for you." As soon as Chloe saw the news, she went to find Leo. "What are you doing here?" Leo asked. He was working at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. His mother's hospital bills were astronomical, and even though Amelia had helped him, Leo hated being indebted to anyone, so he worked multiple part-time jobs to try and pay her back. Chloe ordered a coffee. The shop was quiet at this hour, so she started to talk with him. "Leo, you need to leave Amelia." Leo froze, his head bowed and the rims of his eyes turning red. "I know this is wrong, but I don't have a choice. I need the money." Chloe quickly interjected, "I can help you. I'll give you the money. If that makes you uncomfortable, think of it as a loan you can pay back later. I promise your mother will continue to get the best care." Leo clutched his apron. "No, Chloe. I know you're a good person, but I can't take your money." Chloe was getting frustrated, not understanding his refusal. "But you can take Amelia's money?" Leo lifted his head, his expression one of pure humiliation as he glared at her. Chloe sighed. "I didn't mean it like that, but you have to understand, Amelia has a fiancé. They're deeply in love. What does that make you? Stuck in the middle?" Leo bit his lip, his face turning pale. I know I'm in the wrong, but I can't. I can't leave her. I told you I can help you, Leo. Anything Amelia has done for you, I can do too. But this way, you wouldn't have to be a kept man. Isn't that better?" Leo kept his head down, twisting the fabric of his apron in his hands. He knew he should be happy about Chloe's offer, but the thought of leaving Amelia was unbearable. After watching him for a moment, Chloe suddenly asked, "You haven't fallen for Amelia, have you?" Leo immediately shook his head. No, of course not. How could I fall for her? I haven't. I really haven't. Chloe said nothing. Leo quickly grabbed her hand. Chloe, I know you mean well, but I already owe Amelia so much. I can't be indebted to you too. I know she just sees me as a stand-in. I won't get any ideas, I promise. Looking at the pitiful young man before her, Chloe felt a pang of sympathy, but she gently pulled her hand away. Ethan's coming back, Leo. You need to think carefully about what you're going to do. Leo stood frozen in place. Of course, he knew who Ethan was. He was the name Amelia cried out when she was drunk, the untouchable part of her world. He was the man whose return meant she would leave Leo in a heartbeat. He was Amelia's fiancé. Amelia, of course, saw my interview and knew I was coming back, and Chloe's warning echoed in her mind. She arranged to meet Leo at the condo she had gotten for him. Leo had cooked dinner and was waiting eagerly for Amelia to arrive. But when she did, she handed him a contract and told him their arrangement was over. I'll give you the money we agreed upon, and you can keep the condo, she said coolly. But I don't want you to ever appear before me again. Our relationship is over. I'll handle things with the hospital, so you don't need to worry. Leo clutched the contract, his eyes welling with tears. He asked, his voice thick with resentment, why? Amelia answered without a moment's hesitation. He's coming back. Leo felt his heart shatter. After 2 years, she was casting him aside without a second thought. Was he really nothing more than a stand-in? Seeing his silence, Amelia frowned, growing impatient and ready to leave. Leo quickly grabbed her sleeve, looking up at her with pleading eyes. Can you grant me one last request? Amelia didn't answer, but she didn't pull away either. Leo's voice was barely a whisper, choked with emotion. I want to celebrate your birthday with you, just one last time. Can I? Amelia considered it. Her birthday was next week, and I wasn't due back until the following month. It didn't seem like it would cause any problems, so she agreed. Leo was overjoyed and threw himself into planning the party. He booked a private karaoke lounge, decorated it himself, and invited all of Amelia's friends. He promised himself that after this one last birthday, he would disappear completely, taking his mother back to their hometown where Amelia would never find him. The party was crowded with Amelia's friends, so she naturally put on a happy face. Leo sat beside her, playing the part of the gracious host, and she didn't seem to notice anything amiss. Chloe, however, watched from the side with a grim expression. As Amelia leaned in to blow out the candles, the crowd started to get rowdy. Kiss her. Yeah, give her a kiss. Leo's face flushed, and he shyly lowered his head. Amelia was bored by the whole display. She had brought him here, but they had never so much as held hands. There was no way she was going to kiss him. A few of the guys egged them on. Go on, Amelia. Don't be shy. Yeah, what are you waiting for? Amelia glanced down at Leo beside her. In his white suit, with his face flushed red, she suddenly found him rather adorable. Her heart fluttered. Leo looked up, his eyes meeting Amelia's, and a spark of intimacy suddenly flared between them. Just at that moment, the door to the lounge swung open, and I walked in, wearing an identical suit. Well, am I late? The music had been turned down for the candles, so my voice cut through the silence. Everyone turned to stare. The intimate atmosphere instantly evaporated, replaced by a thick, awkward tension as all eyes darted between me and Leo, eager to see the drama unfold. The difference between the original and the stand-in was stark. Leo was the picture of innocent charm, while I exuded an air of composed, sophisticated elegance. As everyone took in the spectacle, they silently criticized Amelia's taste. Placed side by side, we looked nothing alike. I glanced first at Amelia, taking in her appearance. She was more mature than I remembered. Then my eyes fell on the male lead, and I couldn't help but smile. Another delicate flower type. He might have resembled my old self, but I had since infused the original host's body with my own presence, and years of experience abroad had polished him into someone far more elegant and composed. Now the resemblance was gone. When no one spoke, I raised an eyebrow. What, no welcome for me? Before I could finish my sentence, I was pulled into an embrace. Looking over her shoulder, I saw that Amelia's spot was now empty. The only person meeting my gaze was Leo, his face a mask of heartbreak. Amelia clung to me as if she wanted to absorb me into her very being, overwhelmed by how much she had missed me. The onlookers grew even more uncomfortable. A few men huddled together, whispering and shooting looks of contempt and mockery at Leo. His face went white as a sheet, and he stumbled backward, nearly falling before Chloe caught him. We didn't come here for a public display of affection, someone joked. Yeah, Amelia, if you're going to be all over him, take it home. Exactly, her friends teased. Amelia finally let go of me, her eyes shining with excitement and love as she looked at my face. Taking their jokes to heart, she actually grabbed my hand and started to lead me away. Are you really leaving? Don't go. We just got here. Besides, we want to catch up with Ethan too. It's been forever. Yeah, you can't have him all to yourself. With that, they swarmed forward, playfully pulling me away from Amelia to greet me one by one. I smiled, answering their questions, until I was eventually nudged in front of Chloe. I smiled at her and opened my arms. Chloe. Chloe stared as I came closer, her mind momentarily blank. I raised an eyebrow, feigning disappointment. What? No hug for your old friend? Hearing the familiar nickname, a smile broke across Chloe's face. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, inhaling a faint floral scent from my clothes. I hugged her back tightly, burying my face in the crook of her neck and whispering, I really missed you. Chloe froze. She glanced around nervously, but everyone was just smiling at our reunion. No one seemed to have noticed. She started to wonder if she had imagined it. Seeing that we weren't letting go, Amelia frowned and walked over. She pulled me out of Chloe's embrace and into her own. That's enough catching up, she said possessively. Feeling the sudden emptiness in her arms, Chloe flexed her fingers, a sense of loss washing over her. Wow, look who's jealous, someone teased. Amelia, jealousy doesn't look good on you. Amelia shot them a glare but said nothing, simply tightening her grip on me with an air of pure ownership. I smiled through their teasing, but my gaze was fixed on the male lead, who looked like he was on the verge of tears. I don't believe I've met this friend before, I said, turning to the group and waiting for an introduction. The cheerful atmosphere instantly froze. Most people looked away awkwardly, but a few of the guys watched me with knowing, amused smirks. I turned to Amelia, my expression a perfect picture of innocence and trust. When her eyes met mine, they filled with guilt and anxiety. She glanced over at Chloe, who had protectively pulled Leo into an embrace, her own expression strained. He's my boyfriend. My eyes widened in mock surprise. Chloe, you're dating someone? Chloe let go of Leo and lightly tapped my forehead. What are you talking about? I smiled and extended a hand to Leo. Hi, I'm Ethan Wright, Amelia's fiancé. Leo stared at my smooth, fair hand, then self-consciously extended his own, which was rough with calluses. Leo Vance. I gave his hand a firm shake, my eyes casually sweeping over him. No need to be so formal. We're all friends here. Chloe and I go way back to college. It's been almost 8 years now. Chloe chimed in from the side. Almost 9. You've been gone so long you've lost track. I grinned. Why do you sound so resentful? You were all supportive when I left. The playful, almost wheedling tone of my voice made Chloe's heart skip a beat, and she remembered what I had whispered to her earlier. I turned back to Leo. I see you like white suits too. We must have similar tastes. We should hang out sometime, maybe hit up a gaming lounge. Seeing my completely guileless act, several of our friends had to look away, afraid they would burst out laughing and expose the whole charade. Amelia, clearly uncomfortable with me talking to Leo, quickly pulled me down to sit beside her. Where's my birthday present? She whispered. I turned to her with a playful smile. I came back early just for you. Isn't that present enough? Amelia's face broke into a genuine smile. It counts. The others sat down as well, but seeing Amelia and me acting so affectionately, then glancing at the miserable-looking Leo, they couldn't help but frown. I excused myself to go to the restroom. The moment I was gone, Amelia turned to the silent Leo. You should go home. Leo thought his heart couldn't break any further, but Amelia's words sent a fresh wave of pain through him. You promised, he said, his voice full of hurt. Amelia remained silent. Right now, nothing was more important than Ethan. Leo read the answer in her silence and sneered. So when he's around, nothing else matters? Is that it? Her silence was all the confirmation he needed. Tears streamed down Leo's face, and a few of the nearby friends started to intervene. Leo, just go home for now. You don't want Ethan to see you like this. Leo's face was ashen. He had considered these people his friends. They were Amelia's friends, and he had always treated them with genuine kindness, remembering their birthdays and getting them gifts. Yet, the moment Ethan returned, they were all telling him to leave. I'm not leaving, Leo said, gritting his teeth. You promised you'd let me spend this birthday with you. Amelia frowned. I don't need you to celebrate my birthday with me. But I was the one with you for the last 2 years. Leo cried, his voice breaking. All I want is to celebrate one last birthday with you. Is that too much to ask? You promised me. One of the guys finally snapped. Give it a rest, man. Don't make this so pathetic. The real deal is back. Who needs a stand-in? Another chimed in, sneering at Leo. Take a look at yourself. You're not even in the same league as the original. Did you really think you were going to be some Cinderella story? He told you to leave, but you're still clinging. It's just sad. Leo looked at Amelia, his eyes pleading for her to defend him. But while she frowned at the comments, she said nothing. Leo's heart shattered into a million pieces. Chloe couldn't stand listening to the increasingly cruel remarks any longer. "That's enough," she said sharply, then turned to Leo. "Let me take you home." Leo stubbornly refused. He walked over to Amelia and grabbed her hand. "Amelia, I don't want to go." "Stop making a scene," another friend hissed. "Just let Chloe take you home. If Ethan finds out, you're dressed exactly like him today. What if he realizes you're his stand-in?" Just then, I pushed the door open. "What stand-in?" The room fell silent once more. The moment Amelia saw me, she violently slapped Leo's hand away from hers. The physical sting was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. His face was ghostly pale as he stared at her, his eyes filled with utter devastation. The sound drew my attention, and I saw the tail end of Leo holding Amelia's hand. My brow furrowed as my gaze flickered between the two of them. "Aren't you supposed to be Chloe's boyfriend?" My question plunged the room into an even deeper silence, with only the soft background music playing on. Amelia quickly stood and started towards me, but I held up a hand. "Stop!" She froze, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. I gave her a cold look, then turned to Chloe. "One of you is going to explain this. What substitute? Who is my stand-in?" Kira, the friend who had mentioned the stand-in, ducked her head, desperately hoping no one would remember it was her who had spoken. I looked at Amelia. Silence. I turned to Chloe. She just pressed her lips together, saying nothing. I let out a cold laugh and scanned the group until my eyes landed on Kira. "Kira, you tell me, who is the stand-in for whom?" Kira flinched at being called out. "It's not what you think, Ethan. We were just talking about some celebrity gossip." "Gossip? Yeah, that's right, just gossip. Don't get the wrong idea." I scoffed. "Do you take me for an idiot? Does this look like the reaction to celebrity gossip?" The group fell silent again. I turned my attention to Leo. "Why don't you tell us, Mr. Vance? Whose boyfriend are you?" Leo felt his face burn, as if his dignity were being ground into the dirt. "No wonder something felt off the moment I walked in," I said, my eyes finding Chloe's across the room. "Chloe, is he really your boyfriend?" Chloe looked at my glistening eyes and, after a long pause, slowly shook her head. My gaze snapped back to Amelia. "Then he's yours." Amelia rushed to deny it. "No, you're my only boyfriend, Ethan." I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. Leo gasped, covering his mouth as he stared at Amelia with concern. The slap silenced the entire room. I looked at her, my voice dripping with disappointment. "You can explain this whole damn mess to your parents and to mine. I can't believe how blind I was." With that, I turned and stormed out. Kira jumped to her feet, ran over to Amelia, and gave her a shove. "Well, go after him." That snapped Amelia out of her stupor, and she ran out after me. When Amelia caught up to me, the excuses came pouring out. "There's nothing between us, I swear. I've never even held his hand. Please, Ethan, don't do this. Forgive me, please." It was a moment of weakness. I was just so confused. "I just missed you so much." I couldn't help myself. I clapped my hands over my ears. "I don't want to hear it." Amelia fell silent. I appeared perfectly calm. I never allow myself to look pathetic, so even in that moment, I maintained my composure. "Amelia, we both need to calm down. I don't know if you're telling the truth or not, and frankly, I don't trust you anymore. I need some time. We shouldn't see each other for a while." A chill ran down Amelia's spine. "Are you leaving me?" My voice cracked with emotion. "What else am I supposed to do? I came back, so excited to celebrate your birthday, and I find this? You found someone else. Amelia, you're the one who betrayed me." Amelia rushed forward and grabbed me. "I didn't. I never did anything to betray you. Please just forgive me this one time. I'm begging you." I struggled against her hold for a moment, then went limp in her arms. "Fine," I said, my voice flat. "We'll take some time to cool off. I'll sort through my feelings. You sort out your complicated relationships. We'll talk again when that's done." Amelia immediately agreed. "I'll end it with him. Once he's gone, we can talk. Just promise you'll give me one more chance." I considered it but said nothing. After dropping Leo off, Chloe returned to her own apartment. The entire way, the image of my devastated face played over and over in her mind, making her heart ache. She knew she should have stopped Amelia from the very beginning. Just as she reached her front door, Chloe saw a figure huddled on the steps. The slender silhouette was trembling slightly in the cold night air. She blinked, hardly daring to believe her eyes, but the figure remained. I looked up and saw Chloe frozen in place. I tried to stand, but my legs were numb from sitting so long. I stumbled, losing my balance and starting to fall down the steps. Chloe lunged forward and caught me, immediately shrugging off her coat and wrapping it around my shoulders. I leaned against her weakly, my voice a small, mournful whisper. What took you so long? In that instant, Chloe was consumed by regret. She never should have taken Leo home. Feeling how cold my arms were, her guilt intensified. She held me tighter, murmuring apologies as she helped me inside her apartment. I'm giving you a key, so next time you can just let yourself in. Why didn't you call me? I would have come right back, Chloe murmured as she settled me on the sofa, fetching a blanket from her room to wrap around me before rushing to the kitchen to put on a kettle. I sat on the couch, staring down at my hands, looking utterly dejected. As Chloe waited for the water to boil, she watched me, her eyes filled with compassion. The system, observing the scene, was confused. Host, Chloe is just a supporting character. Why have you come to her? My head was still bowed, the tip of my nose and the rims of my eyes red from the cold. Hearing the system, a small smirk touched my lips. You said I didn't have to worry about plot deviations, right? Well, she has to pay a price. There are consequences for betraying a friend. I'm going to make her regret it. In the original story, Chloe was a mutual friend to both me and Amelia. But when she saw Amelia cheating, she didn't stop her, nor did she warn me. She even blamed me for coming back because it made Leo sad. How could I let someone blame me for their own failures? No, I'm going to take the moral high ground and make sure the blame falls where it belongs. Chloe handed me a warm mug, wanting to say something but not knowing where to begin. For some reason, she found herself reluctant to even mention Amelia's name. I took a sip of the hot tea, the warmth spreading through me. I looked up and my eyes met Chloe's. She seemed to fall into my gaze, staring at me, transfixed, as she carefully knelt before me. When did you find out? I asked softly. Chloe snapped back to reality, unable to meet my eyes. She turned her head away, avoiding my stare. Her hesitation told me everything. You knew from the beginning, I stated, my voice flat. Chloe looked at me, her eyes swimming with guilt and compassion. A bitter smile twisted my lips. So you knew all along. You didn't tell me. You helped her lie to me. Chloe's lips tightened. I'm sorry. I looked down at the floor. Chloe, are we still friends? Of course we are, she said quickly. We've always been friends. I looked up at her, my disappointment unconcealed. So in all the messages I sent you over the past 2 years, did it ever once cross your mind to tell me the truth? Chloe lowered her head. She had thought about it, but she was afraid of hurting me. She vividly remembered the light in my eyes when I'd left, so full of hope about chasing my dreams. She was terrified that this news would make me give it all up. She couldn't bear the thought of me having regrets, so she kept silent. I have my answer. I set down the mug, gently pushed her aside, and stood up to leave. Chloe quickly grabbed my arm. Where are you going? I turned back to face her. Are you even the same Chloe I used to know? Seeing a tear trace a path down my cheek, Chloe sighed and pulled me into a hug. I'm so sorry. Please don't be sad. This is all my fault. I should have stopped her. I should have told you from the very beginning. Maybe I had been holding it together for too long, or maybe her comfort was the final straw, but being held like that, I finally broke. The sobs came out, raw and full of hurt. What did I do wrong? I cried into her shoulder. Why would you both do this to me? Hearing my choked sobs, Chloe felt a stabbing pain in her chest, sharp and relentless. They had truly hurt me. She had no answer for my question, so she just held me tighter. The system watched me sob my heart out in the supporting female lead's arms, utterly flabbergasted. It grew nervous when it saw me pass out from exhaustion and get carried to the bedroom. But then it watched as Chloe gently wiped the tears from my face, tucked me in as if I were something precious, and then tiptoed out of the room. When Chloe woke up the next morning, I was already gone. She found breakfast waiting on the table, and a warmth spread through her chest. She ate the now cool meal, sent me a quick iMessage, and then left for work. After leaving Chloe's place, I went back to my parents' house. We had a series of visits with family friends and elders, which included, of course, Amelia's parents, the Hamiltons. Ethan, you've grown into such a handsome young man, one of the older women cooed. More than handsome, he's a true talent now. Mr. Wright, you and your wife are set for a comfortable future. I stood by my father's side, a polite smile fixed on my face. When the compliments came, I would just offer a modest smile. Mrs. Davis, you flatter me. It's mostly just media hype. It really is better to have a son. Look at Ethan, so attentive to his parents. Not like my wild daughter, who knows where she runs off to. Exactly. Sons are so much more thoughtful. It's true. My girl would never think to accompany me to something like this. I should have had a son. Well, not all sons are a blessing. Have you seen the Anderson boy? He dresses like he's in a street gang. I think Mrs. Anderson is about to have a stroke. Still, at the end of the day, The right family is truly blessed. I remained by my parents' side, playing the part of the perfect, doting son, well-mannered and poised, earning praise from all the elders. Every time someone complimented me, Amelia's parents would beam with pride. They should be getting married soon, Mr. Hamilton would say. The only reason for the delay was Ethan's studies abroad. Mr. Hamilton, who had initially been displeased with my decision to go abroad, was now bursting with pride over my accomplishments. He spoke of his future son-in-law with immense satisfaction. Whenever anyone praised me, he would mention that the wedding was just around the corner. He played the part of the proud father-in-law to perfection. I made sure to speak with Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton privately, mentioning that I had brought back gifts for them from Europe and would deliver them on my next visit. Mrs. Hamilton was clearly pleased with my manners and deferred to her husband. Mr. Hamilton was equally delighted, holding my hand and speaking warmly until he was reluctantly pulled away by another guest. As the gathering was winding down, I finally spotted the person I'd been waiting for, Bianca Sterling. She was Amelia's aunt, the much younger, late-in-life daughter of the head of the powerful Sterling family. At 29, she was only 4 years older than Amelia. This was an event for an older crowd, mostly parents and their close friends. Bianca and I were the only ones there from our generation. I found her on a second-floor terrace, lounging on a wicker chair with a book covering her face. She must have sensed me, because she shifted the book and saw a man in a white shirt standing before her, his eyes fixed on her chest. Bianca frowned, shifting the book down to cover herself more completely. Annoyed, she opened her mouth to tell me to leave, but then her eyes caught the clear outline of abs beneath my thin shirt. She swallowed hard, her fingertips tracing the cover of the book. I leaned down slightly, a charming smile on my face. "You like this author too? I've been to half a dozen bookstores in Manhattan trying to find this copy. Could I possibly borrow it when you're done?" Bianca sat up, handing me the book without a moment's hesitation. "Of course," I beamed, reaching out with both hands to accept it. As I took the book, our fingers brushed. When Bianca pulled her hand back, she instinctively brought her fingers to her nose, inhaling the faint, sweet scent of roses that now clung to them. I took a seat opposite her, cradling the book. I flipped through a few pages before closing it and looking up to meet her gaze. "I'm Ethan Wright, by the way, and you are." Bianca raised an eyebrow, wondering, was he being deliberately coy, or was this really the Ethan Wright? "Bianca Sterling." My eyes lit up, and I pulled out my phone. "We should exchange numbers. When I'm done with the book, I'd like to take you to dinner to thank you, Miss Sterling." Bianca's eyes lingered on me. As I had sat down, my jacket had shifted, revealing a sliver of toned abdomen that made her pulse quicken. She leaned forward slightly, concealing her interest as she took out her phone and we exchanged numbers. Once I had her number, I leaned back contentedly in my chair and opened the book, a small smile playing on my lips as if I were completely engrossed. Bianca didn't leave. She remained seated across from me, her gaze occasionally drifting to that tantalizing glimpse of skin, though I seemed completely oblivious. We sat in comfortable silence, one of us reading, the other admiring the view. I didn't move until my father came to get me. As I was leaving the terrace, I turned back, holding up the book. "Dinner, when I'm done." Long after I had disappeared from view, Bianca rubbed the back of her hand, trying to quell the lingering tingle. After the party, I went home and dutifully read the book. Only after I'd finished the last page did I open my email. Inside was the file from the private investigator I'd hired, all about Leo Vance. Leo's mother had leukemia. With no suitable donor for a bone marrow transplant, she was undergoing continuous chemotherapy, and the astronomical costs were, of course, being covered by Amelia. I looked over the file, noting Leo's address and daily schedule. Seeing that he was working at the coffee shop today, I decided to pay him a visit. "Welcome to the daily grind. What can I get for you?" When Leo looked up, the welcoming smile on his face froze. He recognized me from the party. I looked him up and down. At the party, he'd been wearing clothes Amelia had bought him. Today, he was in his own. He shifted uncomfortably under my scrutiny. After a moment, I chose a table by the window. "I'll have a latte." Leo snapped out of his daze. "Right away." "One moment." As he prepared the coffee, Leo kept stealing glances at me. He had to admit, I was elegant and handsome in a way that he wasn't. But then he thought of Amelia, and his face paled. Leo placed the latte on my table. "Here you go, enjoy." As he turned to walk away, I stopped him. "Wait." Leo's body tensed, but he turned back. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" I slowly stirred my coffee with a small spoon. "I have a question for you. When you became Amelia's lover, were you aware that she had a fiancé?" Leo froze, the color draining from his face. When his mother was diagnosed with leukemia, his world had collapsed. It was Amelia who had held him up, arranging for the best hospital, finding top specialists, and covering the exorbitant medical fees. Leo had thought she was his savior, but just as he was overwhelmed with gratitude, she had presented him with an agreement. It stipulated that he had to dress according to another man's style, adopt his tastes, and essentially become his stand-in. His world had collapsed all over again, but he couldn't refuse. He couldn't say no to Amelia. She was his mother's benefactor, and the woman he had started to fall for. So he decided to be selfish. For as long as the other man was away, he would be the one by her side. But somewhere along the way, they had both crossed a line. Amelia grew kinder, introducing him to her friends, and he, in turn, became more and more attached to her. If I hadn't shown up, Leo might have actually started to believe he was the one she truly wanted. Seeing the look on his face, I understood everything. So, I said with a sneer, "You knew Amelia had a fiancé, and you still agreed to be her kept man?" Leo's face turned ashen, the rims of his eyes red with humiliation, as if his pride had been crushed under my heel. I didn't let up. "And were you also aware that our engagement wasn't some arranged marriage? That we were together because we were genuinely, deeply in love?" Leo gripped his apron tighter. He remembered the night Amelia had shown up at his door, drunk, murmuring my name over and over. He frowned at the memory. Leo's coworker, Kevin, had just finished with a customer and was about to speak to Leo when he saw him standing there, pale as a ghost. He frowned, and as he started to walk over, he heard me mention Amelia's name. Seeing my expensive clothes, Kevin assumed I was some rich admirer of Amelia's, there to cause trouble for her real boyfriend, and he quickly dialed her number. Amelia was with Chloe when she got the call. Seeing the look on her face, Chloe asked what was wrong. Amelia frowned. "It's Kevin. He says someone is giving Leo a hard time at the coffee shop." Chloe's expression soured. "You still haven't ended things with him?" Amelia looked just as displeased. She had meant to end it for good the other day, but then his mother's condition had taken a turn for the worse. She'd ended up staying with him through the night, and the words had gone unsaid. Reading the expression on Amelia's face, Chloe's own face darkened. "You're not actually going over there, are you?" Amelia's expression was grim. "I'm worried it might be his cousin." His cousin? Chloe had met the guy once. He was a total lowlife who would rough Leo up for money. "I'm coming with you." The coffee shop wasn't far from Amelia's office, and they arrived in 10 minutes. Leo and I were still locked in our confrontation. "Mr. Vance, what will it take for you to leave my fiancé alone?" Leo's expression was rigid. He twisted his apron in his hands for a long moment before finally managing to speak. "I'm sorry, Save it. Just tell me how much money you want. I'll pay it." Leo looked utterly humiliated, biting his lip and refusing to say a word. Kevin, seeing that Leo was on the verge of tears, quickly walked over. "Sir," he said with a forced smile, "is there anything else I can help you with?" I ignored him, my eyes still fixed on Leo. "Mr. Vance, you're only with Amelia for her money. I can give you money. All I ask is that you leave her." Leo hung his head, tears welling in his eyes. Kevin's temper flared at my words. He hated seeing people use money to throw their weight around. "Hey, what kind of talk is that?" he snapped. "You think money can buy love? Our Leo isn't with Ms. Hamilton for her money, okay? They're in love. Who do you think you are, telling her actual boyfriend to leave?" Leo tugged on Kevin's sleeve, trying to silence him. I sneered. "Her actual boyfriend? Is that what you've been telling people?" Kevin couldn't stand my mocking tone and stepped in front of Leo. "Hey, who the hell are you? Don't think you're hot stuff just because you have a little cash. You think we're scared of you?" His voice was loud, drawing the attention of the other customers in the shop. I was unfazed. "Who am I? Hasn't Mr. Vance here told you? I'm the fiancé of your Ms. Hamilton." Kevin was about to fire back a retort when my words registered. He froze. Fiancé? He knew Leo and Amelia had been together for a while. How could she have a fiancé? Kevin slowly turned to look at Leo and saw him standing there, pale and silent, not even trying to deny it. A cold dread washed over Kevin. I pressed on. "Not for money? As I understand it, you're still in college, Mr. Vance. Your mother's medical bills must be in the hundreds of thousands by now. Are you going to tell me Amelia didn't pay for all of that? I'm just curious. In what capacity, exactly, have you been accepting her money?" The other customers were now staring openly, completely engrossed. A fiancé confronting the other man. It was better than television. When Amelia and Chloe walked in, all they saw was Leo, head bowed, with tears streaming down his face. Kevin was blocking their view of me so Amelia didn't see me. Enraged by the scene, she rushed forward and pulled Leo protectively to her side. "Who did this to you?" Kevin turned at the sound of her voice, and as he moved, Amelia's gaze fell past him and locked directly with mine. Amelia froze. A second later, she reacted, violently shoving Leo away from her. He stumbled back into a table, staring at her in disbelief. I gave a bitter laugh. So this is you handling it? This is me giving you another chance. Amelia took 2 steps toward me. No, Ethan, it's not like that. I didn't. But as she got closer, I shot up from my chair and backed away. Don't come near me. Amelia, I am so disappointed in you. You actually make me sick. With that, I threw the rest of my coffee in her face, pulled a few $100 bills from my wallet, slapped them on the table and walked out. Amelia wiped the coffee from her face, about to run after me, but Chloe held her back. Don't push him any further, Chloe warned. I'm worried about what he might do. A fresh wave of panic hit Amelia. She wanted to follow me, but she knew she couldn't. I'll go check on him, Chloe said. You need to sort out this mess. Watching Chloe run out after me, Amelia's heart twisted in agony. Kevin stood frozen, his expression grim. His friend, the person he thought was so innocent, was a homewrecker. And worse, he knew exactly what he was doing. Leo pushed himself up, and as soon as he was on his feet, his eyes met Amelia's cold stare. His stomach dropped. Amelia glared at him, her voice laced with venom. From now on, stay out of my sight, and more importantly, stay away from his. Then Amelia turned and stormed out. Instantly, all eyes in the coffee shop turned on Leo, filled with disdain. A few of the regulars, who had thought he was just a sweet, innocent kid, now looked at him with newfound, cynical respect. The kid was a pro. Amelia's words felt like a knife through his heart. He clutched his chest, waiting for someone, anyone, to offer a word of comfort, but there was only silence. He looked over at Kevin, but his friend had already returned to the counter and was taking another customer's order as if nothing had happened. Chloe caught up with me, pulled me aside, and hailed a cab. A few minutes later, we were back at her apartment. I stopped just inside the doorway. Chloe, who had been leading me by the hand, stopped too and turned to me, her voice soft. What is it? I lunged forward, wrapping my arms around her and holding on tight. Chloe was startled for a second before her own arms came up to hold me back. My voice was muffled against her shoulder. Chloe, are you the only one I have left? Her heart ached for me. She held me closer. Don't be sad, she whispered. You still have me. I ended up staying the night at Chloe's again, leaving breakfast for her before I left in the morning. When I got back to my place and found a spare key to her apartment in my bag, I smiled. The first fish was on the hook. I moved the book I'd borrowed from my nightstand, picked up my phone, and sent a message to Bianca Sterling. Miss Sterling, I've finished the book. When might you be free? I'd love to take you to dinner and return it to you. Bianca was listening to her assistant's daily report when the message came through. At the sound of the phone buzzing, the assistant froze, shot a nervous glance at her boss, then discreetly checked her own phone, only to find it silent. Puzzled, the assistant watched as her boss picked up her own phone and opened iMessage. Bianca read the message, a small smile playing on her lips. The first thing that popped into her head was a single word, abs. The assistant stood by silently, waiting for her boss to reply, utterly astonished. In her 5 years as Bianca's assistant, she had never once seen her use iMessage. Her boss was barely 30 but lived like a woman twice her age. Watching her now, engrossed in her phone, the assistant couldn't help but wonder who she was texting. While I flirted with Bianca over iMessage, I began planning my solo exhibition. Thanks to my reputation from Europe, sponsors were lining up the moment word got out. I already had most of the pieces I needed. I just had to create a few more to round out the collection. You want to paint a starry sky? Bianca and I had been texting when I mentioned my exhibition and my plan to paint a night sky. She immediately called me. I was surprised to get her call. The problem is, you can't see any real stars in the city, I said. It's hard to feel inspired. I could almost hear the smirk in her voice. I know a place, she said, her tone laced with suggestion, where the stars are magnificent. My voice immediately brightened. Really? A smile touched her lips. Interested? Bianca laughed softly, glancing at her calendar. I'm free this afternoon. Sensing an opportunity, I let a hint of flirtation enter my own voice. How about this? I treat you to dinner, and you show me the stars? She wasn't letting me off that easy. You still owe me dinner from the last time. I grinned. Then I'll just have to owe you too. When I went to meet Bianca, I deliberately chose a thin, almost sheer linen shirt that subtly highlighted the muscles of my torso. When I arrived at Sterling Industries, a woman in glasses was waiting for me in the lobby. Mr. Wright? She asked as I approached. I'm Ms. Sterling's assistant. She sent me down to meet you. The assistant maintained a warm, professional smile, but inwardly she was screaming. Asterisk, no wonder the boss, who usually acts like a Luddite, has been glued to her phone. This man is a walking god. Asterisk, thank you. I said with a polite smile, following her to the elevators. I caught the receptionist's gossiping stare out of the corner of my eye just before the doors closed. Bianca was focused on a stack of documents. Since she was leaving early with me, she had front-loaded her work for the day. The sound of crisp, confident footsteps told her it wasn't her assistant entering the office. She looked up, and there I was. Even before her eyes had fully focused on me, she felt a familiar catch in her throat. I walked right up to her desk and hopped up to sit on the edge. "Can't you play hooky today?" Bianca's eyes were drawn to my legs, now just inches from her. She rubbed her thumb and forefinger together, suppressing a wave of heat. "Can't wait," I smiled. "My art supplies are being delivered in half an hour. I wonder if the great CEO of Sterling Industries can clear her desk by then." I playfully poked the stack of files in front of her. Bianca let out a low chuckle. "Of course, we'll be out of here in 30 minutes, on the dot." I raised an eyebrow. "And dinner?" Bianca's gaze drifted back to my legs, dangling casually in front of her. She swallowed, fighting the urge to say she wasn't hungry for food. "There's a restaurant near the place we're going," she said instead. "It's quite good." I nodded, satisfied, and hopped off the desk. I sauntered over to the couch, deliberately positioning myself so I was facing away from her but still in her line of sight. I crossed my long legs and reclined, pulling out my phone. Bianca's eyes roamed over my reclined form. It wasn't until I let out a soft laugh at something on my phone that she snapped out of her trance and forced her attention back to the files on her desk. After the assistant left Bianca's office, her phone immediately blew up with messages from curious coworkers. She just smiled. What was the point in asking her? It wasn't like she knew if he was going to be the boss's future husband or not. Exactly 30 minutes later, the assistant knocked and entered, carrying a large art supply case. "Mr. Wright, your delivery." The assistant beamed back at my smile, but before she could say anything, her boss's sharp voice cut in. "You can go now." "Of course," the assistant said, quickly exiting. I gave the departing assistant a friendly wave, then carried the art case over to Bianca's desk. I set it down, hopped back onto the desk, and gave her chair a playful nudge with my foot. "Well, Miss Sterling, isn't it time to clock out?" Bianca looked from my dangling leg to the final document in her hand, and made a decision. She stood, walked around her desk, and moved in close, invading my personal space. I leaned back slightly, my eyes locked on hers, unflinching. We were so close I could feel the warmth of her breath on my skin. She tilted her head, her lips hovering just millimeters from mine, and then she stopped. "All right," she whispered, "let's call it a day." Then she straightened up, effortlessly picking up the art case from her desk with one hand. She loosened her tie, acting as if her only intention had been to help me with my supplies. "Shall we?" she said smoothly. A wide, bright smile spread across my face, my eyes dancing as if I'd been eagerly waiting for her all along. I hopped off the desk and fell into step beside her as she led the way out. The assistant looked up in surprise as we emerged from the office. Bianca gave her a few curt instructions for the rest of the day, then guided me towards the private elevator. The assistant watched her boss walk a few paces, then glanced back to make sure I was following. A tiny, almost imperceptible smile touched Bianca's lips, and the assistant had a minor existential crisis. It was the first time she had ever seen her boss leave work early. I settled into the passenger seat of Bianca's car, letting her lean over and buckle my seatbelt for me. As she drove, I looked around the pristine interior, then pulled a small, handcrafted good luck charm from my bag and hung it from her rearview mirror. Bianca watched me make myself at home, treating her car as if it were my own. Instead of being annoyed, she just smiled and started the engine. We were headed to a resort, one that was still under construction. As we neared the entrance, Bianca glanced over at me, sitting quietly in the passenger seat. "Not worried I'm going to sell you off to the highest bidder?" I looked up from my phone. "And how much do you think I'm worth?" She laughed softly. "More than you think." I smiled, turning my attention to the passing scenery. "This place isn't open to the public yet, is it?" Bianca nodded. "Which makes you its very first guest. Everyone likes to feel special, and I was no exception." I felt a thrill of pleasure at her words and began to study the resort with genuine interest. It was a beautiful, unique design, blending rustic, tribal aesthetics with modern, multi-story wooden lodges that were exquisitely crafted. She parked the car beside a large lake. I got out and saw that it was covered in lily pads. "We should have come in June," I said, turning to her. "For the blossoms." Bianca smiled. "Then I'll just have to bring you back." The lake was vast, with a pebble-strewn shore. I walked along the water's edge, feeling a sense of peace. Bianca handed her keys to the resort manager, giving him quiet instructions to prepare some of their local specialties for dinner and to make sure the cabin on the island in the middle of the lake was ready for us. After giving her orders, she came to join me. I continued my stroll along the shore, the low angle of the sun making my legs look even longer. Bianca fell into step beside me. The sky here is incredible at night. You'll have a perfect view for your painting. I turned to her, my eyes crinkling with a smile. Thank you, Ms. Sterling. I appreciate it. She smiled and began to tell me about the resort's history. So, a lot of the staff here are people who originally lived in the village on this land. I looked at her, surprised. She nodded. That's right. I bought their land, and in return, they live in the new housing rent-free and have first priority for running the shops and businesses here. It's much better than hiring an entirely new staff. She looked out at the nearly finished resort with a satisfied smile. They'll take better care of this place than any outside employee ever could. I smiled. You're a brilliant businesswoman, Ms. Sterling. Perhaps you could teach me a thing or two. She looked up at me, a playful glint in her eye. I could, but there's a tuition fee. I doubt you're short on cash. She looked into my clear, guileless eyes, and a wicked smile touched her lips. I never said the fee was monetary. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Then what is it you want? She let the silence hang in the air for a long moment, building the suspense before finally saying, I'll tell you later. Come on, let's get some dinner. With that, she turned and strode towards a nearby building. I realized, with some amusement, that my random stroll had been leading us in the direction of the restaurant all along. You can't just leave me hanging, I said, jogging to catch up and giving her sleeve a playful tug. I easily fell into step beside her. I'll tell you later, she repeated, a smile in her voice. By the time we finished dinner, the sky was completely dark. I was about to suggest a walk along the lake when Bianca gently tapped my head. I turned, and she leaned in close, her lips brushing my ear. Look up, she whispered. I tilted my head back and gasped. The vast, dark sky was littered with a brilliant spray of stars, like diamonds scattered across black velvet. After our trip to the resort, Bianca was swamped with work again. I felt it was best to give her some space, so I didn't contact her. Instead, I found myself talking more frequently with Amelia and Chloe. Amelia seemed determined to make amends. She sent a constant stream of flowers to my apartment and messaged me every morning and night, regardless of whether I replied. I would glance at the flood of notifications, frown, and turn my phone screen off, returning to my painting. I had been back in the States for a while, and my parents, noticing that I hadn't yet paid a formal visit to the Hamiltons, sensed that something was amiss. They insisted I go see them and arranged for our two families to have dinner together. Left with no choice, I took the gifts I'd brought from Europe and drove to the Hamiltons' estate. Our families lived only about half an hour apart. I called ahead to let her parents know I was coming, knowing full well they would immediately tell Amelia. Whether she chose to be there or not was none of my concern. Mr. Wright, welcome, the housekeeper greeted me, her face wreathed in smiles. She had been with the family for years and still remembered our engagement party fondly. She had always thought Amelia and I were a perfect match. I smiled back. Hello, Maria. Are Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton in? Yes, of course. Please, come in. I entered with my gifts and saw Mrs. Hamilton in the living room, watching television. Mrs. Hamilton. At the sound of my voice, she quickly stood up, pausing the historical drama she was watching to come and greet me. Ethan, you're here. You shouldn't have brought gifts, you're practically family. I smiled and presented her with a beautifully wrapped box. This is for you. I saw this silk scarf in Paris and thought it would be perfect for you. It was from a luxury brand, a design that was hard to find in the States. When Mrs. Hamilton saw that it was her favorite shade of lavender, a pleased smile spread across her face. How thoughtful of you to remember me all the way over there. I put on my most charming and dutiful expression. And where is Mr. Hamilton? I brought something for him as well. He's in his study. He'll be down in a moment. We didn't get a proper chance to talk at the party. You look like you've lost weight. Weren't you eating well over there? I was fine, just missed American food. We were still chatting in the living room when, instead of Mr. Hamilton coming downstairs, Amelia walked in through the front door. Seeing her daughter enter with a large bouquet of flowers, Mrs. Hamilton teased, "You come home all the time and never bring me flowers." But the moment she hears Ethan is here, she shows up with a bouquet. I guess it's true what they say, a daughter's a daughter, till she gets a man. Amelia walked over and offered the flowers to me. For her mother's sake, I accepted them. They were pink roses, my favorite. Then, I immediately turned and presented the bouquet to Mrs. Hamilton. Then allow me to present them to you on her behalf. You deserve some flowers too. Mrs. Hamilton, who had been feigning a stern expression, broke into a wide smile. See? A son is so much more thoughtful. I smiled. My parents suggested we all have dinner tonight. Since Amelia is here now, perhaps we should head out. Mrs. Hamilton agreed, setting the flowers on the coffee table. I'll go get her father. The moment Mrs. Hamilton disappeared up the stairs, the smile vanished from my face. Amelia knelt in front of me and took my hand. I tried to pull away, but her grip was firm, so I eventually let my hand go limp in hers. I've really ended things with him, she pleaded. Please, don't be angry with me anymore. I turned my head away, refusing to look at her or speak. I've cut all ties with him, I swear. You have to believe me, Ethan. It's only ever been you. I just missed you so much, and I did something stupid. You can understand that, can't you? I promise, I will never have anything to do with him again. I've blocked his number, everything. Please believe me. I know it was my fault. I know I was completely in the wrong. I'm just begging you. Give me one more chance. Give our 7 years together one more chance. Don't throw it all away so easily. Just as I was about to relent and say something conciliatory, I heard Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton's voices as they came down the stairs. Amelia didn't panic. She simply stood up and sat beside me on the couch, her hand still firmly holding mine. Her parents walked over to find us sitting close, holding hands, the very picture of a happy couple. Mrs. Hamilton smiled behind her hand, and even Mr. Hamilton, though he tried to look stern, couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. I pulled my hand from Amelia's, stood up, and greeted her father. Mr. Hamilton. He nodded a simple greeting in return. Amelia stood up as well. All right, let's go. Mom, you ride with Dad. Ethan, you're with me. No one objected to the arrangement, so we all headed out. I sat silently in the passenger seat, a stark contrast to how I had been in Bianca's car. With her, I had been relaxed, at ease, exuding a comfortable laziness. Now I was a block of ice. To make it clear that I was still angry, I leaned back and stared out the window, refusing to even look at Amelia. Amelia kept trying to start a conversation. I heard you're planning an exhibition. Is there anything I can do to help? I watched the city blur past the window, feeling a sense of detachment. Sometimes the world felt so vast that my own existence seemed insignificant, almost unreal. Though my mind was elsewhere, I didn't forget to answer her. No. My tone was clipped and cold. Amelia seemed unsure of what to do, but she cautiously tried a few more topics. Each one met with a terse, dismissive reply from me. When we arrived at the restaurant, just before we got out of the car, I finally turned to look at her. Amelia, promises aren't just words. You want another chance? Then you need to show me with your actions. I need to see your commitment, not just hear about it. Understand? She stared at me, speechless. Ethan, after 7 years, I don't want to end things like this, in a cloud of ambiguity. Please, don't disappoint me again. With that, I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out of the car. During dinner, the conversation inevitably turned to our wedding. The only thing holding it up was Ethan's studies abroad, my father said. Now that he's back, we should pick a date and get it done. I agree, Mr. Hamilton added. They're not getting any younger. It's time. Mrs. Hamilton turned to us. What do you two think? I pressed my lips together. I think it's a little soon. Before I could finish, Amelia cut me off. We'll do whatever our parents think is best. I glanced at her. She was smiling, and under the table, her hand found mine. I tried to pull away, but her grip was tight. I frowned but didn't contradict her. Seeing that I wasn't objecting, a wave of relief washed over Amelia, and for the first time in days, a genuine smile lit up her face. Our parents watched us, one looking down shyly, the other smiling at her, and they all chuckled before diving back into wedding plans. I kept my head down and focused on my food, and by the end of the night, I had no idea what date they had settled on. The news of our impending wedding was not kept quiet, and soon, it seemed like everyone knew. Chloe sat in a private booth at a dimly lit bar, drinking alone. She knew she was in a dangerous mood, but she didn't want to fight it. She just wanted to let go. When her friend Kira walked in and saw her drinking by herself, she was surprised. Chloe, what's wrong? Chloe gave a humorless smile. Yeah, what is wrong with me? Ethan and Amelia were getting married. As their best friend, she should be happy for them, but she felt nothing but a hollow ache. Instead, her mind was filled with images of the moments she and I had spent alone together recently. She knew her feelings were wrong. She didn't even know when they had started. Before I left for Europe, or after I came back, she didn't know, and she couldn't seem to stop them. All she knew was that by the time she recognized what was happening, the news of my wedding was already making her miserable. Sensing her friend's distress, Kira pressed, seriously, what's going on? You look like you just got your heart broken. Chloe didn't say anything, but she didn't deny it either. Kira was about to make a joke, but then it clicked. She took a step back, her eyes wide. Holy crap, are you serious? You're heartbroken? Since when? Who is it? Do I know him? Did you dump him or did he dump you? A bitter smile touched Chloe's lips. Dumped? We never even started. I never even had a chance. The memory of my embrace flashed in her mind, and she threw back another drink. Seeing her friend spiraling, Kira snatched the glass from her hand. Hey, talk to me. How am I supposed to help if you don't tell me what's wrong? Drowning your sorrows won't solve anything. With her drink gone, Chloe just stared down at the table in silence. Kira sighed and tried to change the subject. So, did you hear about Ethan and Amelia getting married? I can't believe he's going through with it. I always thought he had more of a backbone. After what she did, I can't believe he forgave her so easily. When she got no response, Kira glanced over at Chloe and saw her friend's expression darken even further. A crazy thought popped into her head, and she blurted it out before she could stop herself. It's not Ethan, is it? Chloe didn't deny it. After a 3-second pause, Kira shot to her feet. Holy shit, it is Ethan? When did this happen? How did I not know? When did you two get together? She ran a hand through her hair, thinking out loud. No, that's not right. Ethan's been in Europe for years, and you haven't even traveled for work. There's no way. And he's so in love with Amelia, and he really sees you as his best friend. He would never cross that line. Unless… Kira turned to face Chloe, who had finally looked up. Her voice was full of dawning realization. It's one-sided. Again, Chloe didn't deny it. Kira spun around, kicked a nearby trash can, and let out a string of curses. Chloe, they've set the date. It's in July. What are you going to do? Chloe picked up her glass and drained it. This time, Kira didn't stop her. Kira sat down beside her and sighed. Go ahead, Chloe. Drink. But after tonight, you have to let it go. Chloe poured drink after drink, as if getting drunk could erase the pain, could make the truth disappear. Kira sighed, trying to comfort her. At first, she encouraged Chloe to move on, but as the night wore on, her tone began to change. Don't be too upset, she said, her voice turning conspiratorial. They're not married yet. Who knows, maybe Amelia will have another lapse in judgment and run back to Leo. There's no way Ethan would forgive her a second time. You should see the way she's been fawning all over him lately. It's pathetic. Serves her right. I mean, what Amelia did was just awful, Kira went on. She had a great thing with Ethan, and she had to go and find a replacement. And I don't even think Leo looks that much like him. Okay, maybe their vibe is similar, but the second you see them together, it's night and day. What was she thinking? As Kira rambled on, Chloe drank herself into a stupor. Kira sighed and hauled her friend home. After depositing her on her bed, Kira gently patted her cheek. Chloe, you're going to be okay, right? I'm heading out. Call me if you need anything. And if you're still miserable tomorrow, we'll do this again. Knowing that Chloe was a quiet drunk who would just sleep it off, Kira felt comfortable leaving her there. In the middle of the night, Chloe woke up, parched. She fumbled for her phone and, in a drunken haze, dialed my number. I had been sound asleep, but the vibration of my phone on the nightstand instantly woke me. The system, observing this, couldn't help but ask, "Host, I thought you were asleep?" A small smile touched my lips, but I said nothing. I picked up the phone, saw Chloe's name, and raised an eyebrow. I lay back down, letting it ring until the last possible second before answering. "Hello," I answered, my voice thick with sleep and a hint of annoyance. "Ethan, I need to see you." I feigned confusion. "Chloe? What time is it? Why are you still awake?" "Ethan, I need to see you," she repeated, her words slurred and disjointed. It seemed to be the only thing she could say. I let my voice sharpen with concern, as if just realizing something was wrong. "Where are you? You don't sound okay. I'm coming to get you. Tell me where you are." When she confirmed she was at her apartment, I said quickly, "Okay, don't move. I'm on my way." I hung up the phone and slowly got out of bed, my face a complete blank. The system was stunned. It had just watched me cycle through a range of emotions with my voice, while my facial expression remained utterly placid, a perfect, chilling mask. It was after 4 in the morning by the time I got to Chloe's apartment. Luckily, I had the key she'd given me, so I didn't have to worry about waking her. I let myself in and went straight to her bedroom. The bed was empty, and I frowned. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. She was huddled on the floor by the side of the bed, almost completely hidden from view. I knelt in front of her and saw that she had fallen asleep leaning against the mattress. I reached out and touched her cheek. My hand was cold from the night air, and the touch instantly woke her. "Ethan," she murmured. "You came." I nodded. "Why were you sleeping on the floor?" She was still half asleep. "You told me not to move. I was afraid you wouldn't find me, so I stayed right here." I raised an eyebrow, a strange warmth spreading through my chest at her childlike obedience. I reached out and ruffled her hair, like I was praising a favorite pet. She seemed to understand the gesture, and a small, happy smile touched her lips as she leaned into my touch. Come on, get in bed. I helped her up and onto the bed. As she settled into the pillows, I sat on the edge of the mattress and asked gently, "Why did you drink so much tonight?" Like a child being questioned by a teacher, she answered honestly. "Because I was sad." "Why were you sad?" "Because you're getting married," she said, her grip on my hand tightening, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Ethan, please don't marry her. Amelia isn't good for you." A slow smile spread across my face. The fish was taking the bait. "Why not? Amelia is wonderful." "She's not," Chloe insisted. "She has someone else. She's good to someone else." "Ethan, leave her. We don't need her. She was good to someone else, so we don't want her. It can just be us. Okay?" I smiled. "Yes, she has someone else. But you were on her side, weren't you? If you had been on my side from the beginning, things might have been different." Chloe seemed to be drifting off, murmuring, "She's not good, don't want her," before finally falling asleep. I tried to pull my hand free, but her grip was surprisingly strong. I started to wonder if she was faking it. "System, is she pretending to be drunk?" The system ran a quick diagnostic. "Negative, host. Her blood alcohol level confirms she is genuinely intoxicated." I looked down at our joined hands, then at the sleeping woman beside me. The fish was hooked. I smiled and decided to fan the flames a little higher. I set my phone on the nightstand, lifted the covers, and slid into bed beside her. As if sensing my presence, she instinctively wrapped her arms around me, holding me close, and fell back into a deep, contented sleep. The next morning, Chloe woke up in a groggy haze. She shifted slightly and froze. She was holding someone. Her eyes flew open, and she found herself staring at the back of a man's head. A torrent of curses for Kira ran through her mind. Kira actually sent a man to my bed. The thought of spending the night holding a stranger filled her with revulsion. She was about to shove him away when her eyes fell on the clothes and bag neatly folded on the nightstand. They were familiar. They were mine. She stared at the man beside her in disbelief. The faint, clean scent of his hair was unmistakably Ethan's. Kira picked up on the first ring. "Chloe, you're alive. How's the head? Good thing you're a quiet drunk." The sound of Kira's voice seemed to disturb the man in her arms. He shifted, turning over to face her and burrowing deeper into the blankets. As I turned, Chloe saw my face, and her heart stopped. "Chloe, listen," Kira was saying. "Don't be too upset." Hearing Kira's voice still chattering on, and seeing me frown in my sleep, Chloe quickly hung up. Kira, who had been about to launch into a lecture, stared at her phone in confusion. Had something happened? She immediately called back. Chloe was still staring at me when her phone rang again. She silenced it with lightning speed, saw it was Kira, and sent a quick text, "Do not disturb." Then she turned her phone off completely. Seeing that I was still sleeping peacefully, she smiled, a deep sense of contentment washing over her. She settled back down on her side, just watching me sleep, her heart feeling full for the first time in a long time. When I woke up, Chloe was gone from the room. In the bathroom, I found a new toothbrush and toiletries set out for me. I raised an eyebrow, impressed. After I had showered and dressed, I found her in the kitchen, making breakfast. "Head not hurting?" I asked. Chloe had no memory of the previous night. She didn't know why I was here, but she had woken up feeling happier than she had in ages. She turned from the stove, a bright smile on her face. "Doesn't hurt a bit," she said, her eyes shining. I raised an eyebrow. Was I a lot of trouble last night? From her question, I could tell she didn't remember a thing. "Not at all," I said, shaking my head. "But maybe don't drink so much next time. It's not good for you." Chloe felt a pang of disappointment that I didn't elaborate, but she pushed it aside. "Go ahead and sit down," she said, gesturing to the table. "Breakfast is almost ready." I did as she said, my demeanor perfectly normal as I chatted with her, my tone as friendly and casual as ever. "Who were you out drinking with last night?" I asked. "Can't believe they just dropped you off and left you like that." Chloe suddenly regretted not calling Kira back to get the full story. "Oh, it was just Kira," she said. "Wait, you saw me last night?" I shook my head, feigning confusion. "No, when I got here, you were all alone." Chloe frowned, trying to piece together the events of the previous night. "You really scared me," I continued. "Calling me in the middle of the night like that, I thought something terrible had happened." A warmth spread through Chloe's chest, mixed with a thrill of excitement. So, she had called me and I had come running. I quickly changed the subject, making no mention of last night or the fact that I had woken up in her bed. I just ate my breakfast and casually replied to the messages I'd missed. As Chloe placed a glass of warm milk in front of me, she caught a glimpse of my phone screen. The name at the top of my iMessage conversation was Amelia. Chloe's good mood instantly evaporated. She sat down across from me, watching me type between bites, and finally asked, "Are you two really getting married?" I paused mid-chew. Chloe immediately sensed she had overstepped and rushed to explain. "I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It seems a little fast. Do your parents know about her and Leo?" I shook my head. Chloe sighed. "Then you need to make it clear to her. She can't have any more contact with Leo." I looked up at her, my expression unreadable. After a long silence, I said, "She promised me she would." Chloe was speechless. She wanted to tell me not to be so naive, but she couldn't bring herself to hurt me further. I looked down at my plate. After a moment, I spoke again, my voice low. "To be honest, I don't even know if I want to marry her anymore." Chloe's eyes widened, and she looked up at me, a flicker of hope in her gaze. I sighed. "I just can't get past what she did. She says she did it because she missed me, but how can you do that to someone you truly love? I don't think I can ever trust her again, but it's been 7 years. I can't just throw that all away. I'm so torn, Chloe." Chloe chose her words carefully. "If you're having doubts, maybe you should just postpone the wedding. See if she can earn back your trust." I shook my head. "Our parents have already set the date. If I postpone now, it will just upset everyone." Chloe looked down, hiding the disappointment in her eyes. "But," I added, "I've decided to give her one last chance. One last chance for our relationship. If she disappoints me again, it's over. For good." Hearing this, Chloe looked down into her glass of milk, and a dark, calculating look flickered in her eyes. After leaving Chloe's, I threw myself back into planning my exhibition. I had 42 of my own pieces ready. In addition, I had secured loans of over a dozen masterpieces, including a few incredibly rare works that usually only appeared in headlines. These came from the private collections of Amelia and Bianca, and I had accepted them without hesitation. I hired a top-tier security team to guard the venue. In the weeks leading up to the opening, I met with Bianca several more times, using the excuse of needing her advice on handling the VIP guests as a pretext to flirt. I didn't think she was the type to get drunk and confess her feelings like Chloe, but I could tell things were simmering nicely. It was time to let her be for a while. And so, amid a flurry of activity, my exhibition opened. The event was an instant success, drawing crowds for 3 reasons: my own burgeoning fame, the allure of the loaned masterpieces, and the rumor that both Bianca Sterling and Amelia Hamilton would be in attendance. The tickets sold out immediately, and a long line of hopefuls waited outside, hoping to get in if anyone left early. I played the part of the gracious host, moving through the crowd, while also taking the opportunity to connect with genuine connoisseurs and critics. The entire evening was a whirlwind. Amelia arrived bearing a bouquet of flowers and a gift. "Congratulations, Ethan," she said, her smile warm. "The exhibition is a huge success. You're one step closer to your dream." She handed them to me with a gentle smile. I briefly inhaled the scent of the flowers before passing them to a nearby assistant, then turned back to her. "Thank you." I knew, of course, that the original host's dream had been to become a world-renowned painter, to have his work seen and appreciated by people all over the globe. Amelia remained by my side for the rest of the evening. While many in our social circle knew of our impending marriage, the art critics and media in attendance did not. The cameras flashed, capturing the image of the perfect, talented couple. This was the scene that greeted Bianca Sterling when she arrived. A stray lock of my hair had fallen across my face, and Amelia, with a look of casual intimacy, reached up and gently tucked it behind my ear. Bianca, who was holding a bouquet of her own, suddenly remembered the phone call from her brother a few days prior, telling her that his daughter, her niece, was getting married. Her smile stiffened, and with a cool expression, she walked towards us. Her assistant had thought this was just a random social event, but Bianca's insistence on bringing flowers and a gift had surprised her. Now, seeing that it was my exhibition, it all made perfect sense. The assistant followed her boss towards our group. As they got closer, she realized with a jolt that the woman standing so intimately beside me was none other than her boss's niece. Just as the assistant was trying to process this, Amelia spoke. "Aunt Bianca? What are you doing here?" Amelia was surprised to see her. They had been close as children, but as they grew older, Bianca's constant success had made Amelia feel overshadowed, and their relationship had cooled. Bianca nodded, her eyes shifting to me. She saw the flicker of surprise in my expression and realized I hadn't known she was Amelia's aunt. So she thought, now that he knows, what will he do? With that thought, she extended the bouquet to me. "Congratulations." I looked at the bouquet of stunning red roses and raised my eyebrows, my expression shifting from surprise to genuine delight. Seeing my reaction, the tension in Bianca's shoulders seemed to ease slightly. "I wish you all the success," she said. I tilted my head and gave her a warm, private smile. Amelia, watching our exchange, frowned. "Aunt Bianca?" she asked, her eyes darting between us. "You two know each other?" Bianca's reply was clipped. "Yes." My own smile never wavered, and I held Bianca's gaze with an intensity that was almost tangible. Her stern expression softened, the corners of her mouth beginning to lift, but then she glanced at Amelia, and her face became a mask once more. Amelia looked at me, her eyes full of questions, but I kept my attention focused on Bianca, ignoring her completely. A flicker of disappointment crossed Amelia's face, but she quickly hid it. Bianca glanced at the surrounding artwork. "Why don't you give me a tour?" she asked, her tone casual. I nodded eagerly. "Of course." I gestured to our left and then glanced back at Amelia. "You can look around on your own for a bit." Without giving Amelia another glance, Bianca followed me. As we walked, I explained the story and inspiration behind each piece. When we reached the center of the gallery, Bianca stopped. She was looking at the painting that was drawing the largest crowd, the starry night I had painted at her resort. I watched her, feigning confusion. As she walked towards the painting, a small smile touched my lips, and I waited. As she drew closer, she read the small plaque beside the painting, and her heart began to race. She turned to look at me, and I was still standing in the same spot, smiling at her. In that moment, it felt as if we were the only two people in the room, connected by an unspoken understanding. I was surprised as she strode purposefully back towards me. She took my hand and leaned in, her voice a low whisper in my ear. "Where's the private lounge?" I pointed, and she immediately pulled me in that direction. The moment we were inside the lounge, she pushed me back against the door, her arms wrapping around my waist, pressing our bodies together until there was no space left between us. "That painting," she murmured, her breath hot against my skin. "Does it mean what I think it means?" Pinned against the door, I was forced to meet her intense gaze. A playful smile touched my lips. "And what is it you think it means?" She saw the teasing glint in my eyes and a slow grin spread across her face. "You're doing this on purpose." I laughed. "I have no idea what you're talking about." She tilted her head, her lips almost touching mine. "You will soon." And then she kissed me. I started to protest, but my words were silenced by her lips. I tried to push her away, but she only held me tighter. She was a skilled kisser, and within moments, I was breathless, my legs weak, relying on her to hold me up. The small room was thick with a charged, intimate energy. Outside, the gallery buzzed with polite conversation and clinking glasses. Inside, a different kind of fire was being kindled. Amelia watched me leave with her aunt, a frown creasing her forehead. She took a step to follow, but a hand on her shoulder stopped her. She turned to see Chloe and Kira. "What are you two doing here?" Kira frowned. "What do you mean?" "It's Ethan's big night. Of course we came to support him. I heard there's going to be an auction later, too." Amelia nodded. "He's auctioning off a few pieces. All the proceeds are going to a charity that helps underprivileged kids with their school tuition." "That's great," Kira said. "I'll have to bid on one." Chloe's eyes were scanning the room, paying no attention to their conversation. When she couldn't find me, she finally turned to Amelia. "Where's Ethan?" At the mention of my name, Amelia's frown returned. "He went off with my aunt." Chloe frowned. "Your aunt?" Kira looked surprised as well. "You mean Bianca Sterling?" Amelia nodded. "I have no idea how he even knows her." Chloe was just as confused, but Kira seemed to have it figured out. "It's obvious, isn't it? It's about the money." Both women turned to look at her. Kira suddenly felt a strange pang of guilt, which made no sense. Chloe was the one with the crush, not her. Chloe, for her part, remained impassive. Seeing them both waiting for an explanation, Kira pressed on, despite her unease. "I heard that most of the sponsors for this exhibition are Bianca's business partners. And those paintings," she said, gesturing to the cordoned-off masterpieces. "Didn't Bianca buy those at auction a while back? He must have asked her to loan them to him. And with you as the connection, of course she'd help him out. It only makes sense that he'd give his primary benefactor some special attention." That particular comment eventually made its way back to me, and I used it to tease Bianca relentlessly, for which she made me pay several times. By the time the auction began, Bianca and I had gone our separate ways. I went on stage to say a few words before turning things over to the auctioneer. The paintings all sold for impressive prices, and as I had arranged beforehand, all the proceeds were donated on the spot to the charity. The move elevated the entire event, and the media coverage sent my name trending on Twitter, earning me a wave of new fans and admirers. It's worth noting that the Starry Night painting, which I had titled Lucid Dream, was sold to Bianca for a staggering price. Amelia had also bid on it, even sending her aunt a private message asking her to back down. But of course, Bianca would never let a painting that was so clearly about her go to someone else. I wasn't surprised. She was, after all, an incredibly possessive woman. I had just gotten home after the exhibition when a message from Bianca came through. It was short and to the point: break off your engagement with Amelia. But that was just the beginning. Her possessiveness was nothing compared to what I had planned. What I wanted was far more complex. And Bianca, for all her intelligence, had no idea. After sending the message, Bianca waited, her heart pounding with anticipation. When hours passed with no reply, she frowned. But then she remembered how exhausted I must be after the exhibition. I was probably already asleep. She decided not to worry about it. She threw herself back into her work, and by the time she looked up again, several days had passed. I still hadn't replied. Before she knew it, it was mid-June, and my wedding to Amelia was just weeks away. Bianca stared at her unanswered message, a deep frown creasing her forehead. A few days earlier, she had stopped by her family home and run into her brother. He hadn't seemed at all concerned about a broken engagement. On the contrary, he was glowing with the joy of a man about to walk his daughter down the aisle. The pencil in her hand snapped in two. She remembered her brother's parting words. "Your niece is getting married, Bianca. When are you going to settle down? I met some very eligible young men at a gala the other night. Let me show you their pictures." Bianca stared out the floor-to-ceiling window of her office. Her eyes narrowed. So I hadn't broken off the engagement. In fact, I was about to go through with the wedding. At that thought, Bianca's face darkened. What, then, had all our interactions meant? Her gaze fell on the painting hanging in her office, and she began to replay every single moment we had spent together. Had she been deluding herself this entire time? When her assistant knocked and entered, she did so with bated breath. The atmosphere in the office had been dangerously tense lately, and she knew to tread lightly. She figured her boss must have had a fight with Mr. Wright, but that didn't make sense. After the gallery opening, her boss had been radiant, practically floating. How had she gone from that to the stormy silence in just a few days? The assistant placed an elegant envelope on the desk. "Ma'am, this is from your brother. He said he was in the neighborhood and asked me to give it to you." Though nervous, the assistant couldn't help but peek at the invitation. She knew Bianca's brother was much older. What could this be for? Was he trying to trick her into another blind date setup? The thought of her boss going on a blind date actually eased the assistant's anxiety. If she and Mr. Wright were fighting, maybe she'd go just to spite him. It was a classic move, using another man to make your own jealous. The assistant was very familiar with that particular trope. Bianca stared at the invitation on her desk. It was sealed with an ornate wedding sticker. She had a sinking feeling, but she told herself it was impossible. Her face a grim mask, she tore it open. It was, as she had feared, a wedding invitation for Amelia Hamilton and Ethan Wright. Seeing the thunderous expression on her boss's face, the assistant began to panic. This was more than just anger. She risked a peek at the invitation and saw the groom's name, Ethan Wright. The assistant's eyes widened. The Ethan Wright? She was completely bewildered. Weren't he and her boss seeing each other? How could he suddenly be getting married to someone else? And the invitation was from her boss's own brother. Looking at Bianca's stormy expression, the assistant wondered if she had done something to anger him, driving him to marry another woman out of spite. While the assistant's mind raced with dramatic possibilities, Bianca had no time for speculation. She snatched the invitation, stormed out of the office, and dialed my number as she sped out of the parking garage. The voice that answered sounded completely normal, the same easy, charming tone as always, as if he weren't the man whose wedding invitation she was clutching in her hand. "Where are you?" she demanded. A small smile played on my lips. "At my apartment." "Don't move," she commanded. "I'm on my way." Then she hung up. I owned a few properties in the city, so I wasn't always staying with my parents. I knew the Hamiltons would be sending out invitations this week, and I had a feeling that once Bianca received hers, she'd come looking for me. So I'd made sure to stay at my own place. She arrived in less than 30 minutes. The moment I opened the door, she grabbed my wrist and slammed me back against the wall, shoving the invitation in my face. "I told you to break off the engagement," she seethed. "Did you not get my message? Is this your idea of breaking it off?" After the initial shock, I showed no fear. I looked at the furious woman before me, her eyes blazing, and offered a placid smile. "It's not that easy to call off. We've been engaged for years. If I break it off the moment I get back, so you just went along with it? You're just going to obediently marry her?" Bianca felt like she was going to explode. What kind of pathetic excuse was that? It was just an engagement, not an unbreakable vow. "Her father was already unhappy when I went abroad," I said calmly, deliberately downplaying the situation. "Imagine how furious he'd be if I broke it off the second I returned." Bianca felt like her lungs would burst. Everything about this man was exactly what she found irresistible. especially that mouth. She had tasted it, knew how soft it was. And now, that same mouth was uttering words that made her want to scream. "Fine," she snapped. "If you won't do it, I will." Quickly grabbed her arm. "Don't. I'd rather not become the subject of town gossip." Something in my tone finally made her pause. She calmed herself, her eyes boring into mine as she leaned in closer. "Ethan, are you going to break off this engagement or not?" My smile faded. I simply looked at her, saying nothing. We stared at each other in silence for a long moment. Finally, Bianca nodded, a cold, bitter smile on her lips. "I get it. I was deluding myself." With that, she released me and walked out, slamming the door behind her. When she reached her car, she finally let her frustration out, kicking the tire hard. Bianca's assistant noticed that ever since her boss had stormed out with that invitation, her mood had gone from bad to worse. She was no longer just a thundercloud. She was a dormant volcano, rumbling and ready to blow. The assistant could feel the eruption was imminent. Just as the assistant was about to slip out of the office, Bianca's voice stopped her. "I need you to run a background check on someone." The assistant froze, her eyes widening before she even turned around. She composed her features into a mask of professionalism and turned to face her boss. But inside, she was screaming. Asterisk, here it is. The drama is finally here. Asterisk, when she learned the target of the investigation was her boss's own niece, Amelia Hamilton. The assistant's jaw nearly hit the floor. She had a sudden, vivid image of her boss crashing the wedding on July 18th. Driven by this dramatic possibility, the assistant was incredibly thorough in her investigation and quickly uncovered some very interesting information. "Ma'am," she said, placing a file on Bianca's desk. "This is what I found on Miss Hamilton's activities since Mr. Wright went abroad." Bianca opened the file. The first page was a photo of Amelia and me, smiling happily together. She frowned, her eyes lingering on my smiling face for a moment before she flipped the page. There, she saw a picture of a young man she didn't recognize. The assistant quickly explained. "That's the college student Miss Hamilton has been sponsoring since Mr. Wright left the country." Bianca's head snapped up. "What did you just say?" The assistant understood her boss's shock. She'd felt it herself when she uncovered the information. "His name is Leo Vance," she explained. "He's a college student from a single-parent home. His mother is ill, and Miss Hamilton has been paying for all of her medical expenses. She also bought him a condo. It's a classic kept man situation, especially since she and Mr. Wright never broke off their engagement." Bianca flipped through the rest of the file, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and disbelief. This was the woman he was about to marry? Seeing the fury on her boss's face, the assistant ventured, "But I think Mr. Wright must know about it." Bianca's sharp gaze snapped back to her. The assistant swallowed nervously under her boss's intense stare. "Mr. Wright is a very intelligent man. Since he's been back, he's come to you for everything, for help with his exhibition, for advice. Not to Miss Hamilton. That suggests a certain distance between them. But they're still engaged, and everyone knows how in love they were in college." She wiped a bead of sweat from her brow. "It means something is wrong between them, and you saw it yourself at the gallery opening. Miss Hamilton was practically bending over backward for him, and he was giving her the cold shoulder. She looked like she was trying to atone for some great sin." As her boss's expression softened, the assistant breathed a silent sigh of relief. She had another theory, of course, that I was using Bianca as a tool for revenge against Amelia. But she didn't dare voice that particular suspicion. Whether her boss had considered that possibility, she didn't know, and she didn't want to find out. Bianca stared at the file, her brow furrowed. After a long silence, she closed it, taking out only a few of the photographs. There was one of Amelia comforting Leo outside a hospital room, another of them shopping together, one of her introducing him to her friends, and several of them entering the condo together. Each picture told a story of intimacy. Bianca handed the photos to her assistant. "Send these to him," she said, anonymously. The assistant took them, momentarily stunned. "To Mr. Wright?" Bianca leaned back in her chair and nodded, closing her eyes. She would give me one more chance. If I broke off the engagement after seeing these, she could forgive everything else. The assistant nodded and quickly left to carry out the order. I was at home, in the middle of a tuxedo fitting for the wedding, when an anonymous package arrived. I raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Chloe was standing nearby, her heart aching as she watched the man she loved being fitted for another woman's wedding. When the package arrived, she frowned, worried it might be something malicious. "Let me get that," she said, stepping forward to open it herself. When she saw the photos inside, her frown deepened into a scowl. From a distance, I could see her expression sour, but the initial fear was gone. Clearly wasn't a bomb, so I walked over. What is it? Chloe quickly tried to close the envelope. You don't want to see this. I brushed her hand aside, took the envelope and saw the photos for myself. She watched, her heart breaking, as I sat there in my wedding tuxedo, silently flipping through the pictures. She knelt in front of me. Stop looking at them, Ethan. I pulled one photo from the stack and handed it to her. Her eyes widened in panic as she looked at it, then back at me. It was a picture from a party with Amelia and Leo, and in it, Chloe was smiling brightly at the young man. No, it's not what it looks like, she stammered. I leaned in close, our faces just inches apart. Chloe, I said, my voice low and intimate. Ever since I got back, I've had this feeling that you're not just my friend anymore, that you have other loyalties now. My words, delivered with a deliberate, dramatic pause, made her heart skip a beat. No, she said, her voice desperate. I'm still on your side. I'm not. I shook my head, cutting her off. You should go. You don't need to stay for the rest of the fitting. The casual, dismissive words hit her like a physical blow. She stood frozen. Ethan, I turned away from her. Please, just leave me alone for a while. Helpless, Chloe had no choice but to leave. If you need anything, she said at the door, call me. I don't care what I'm doing. I'll be there. Then she added, her voice thick with emotion, in my heart, Ethan, no one could ever take your place. With that final, pointed declaration, she left. But the moment she was home, her eyes were glued to her phone, waiting for my call. The moment Chloe was gone, my facade dropped. I looked down at the photos, wondering who had sent them. Leo? Some socialite I had crossed in the past? Or was it Bianca? The tailor from the bridal shop came back in with another tuxedo. Mr. Wright, what do you think of this one? I looked up. I'll try it. The fit was perfect. I was quite pleased. The tailor, seeing my satisfaction, began to sing its praises. This tuxedo suits you perfectly, Mr. Wright. The designer said it was a very particular cut, that not just anyone could pull it off. But on you, it's magnificent. After a few more compliments, he added, this is a one-of-a-kind design, sir. You could even purchase the exclusive rights from the designer, ensuring no one else could ever wear it. I gave the tailor an appreciative glance. Is there a matching gown? He nodded eagerly. Yes, of course. I have it right here. Let me show you. The gown was stunning, a classic white with a delicate, handcrafted pearl flower adorning the bodice. The tailor saw the approval in my eyes. The young lady who was here earlier is quite slender, he said quickly. This would need to be altered to fit her, but we could have it done in no time. I shook my head. No alterations needed. This is the one. The tailor opened his mouth to protest. If the dress didn't fit the bride, it would be his reputation on the line. And how could he, in good conscience, let such a handsome groom have anything less than a perfect wedding? But before he could speak, I cut him off. It's not for her. No alterations will be necessary. The tailor stood there, stunned into silence. By the way, I added, your company is handling the entire event, correct? I want you to be the lead planner for my wedding. I'll speak to your supervisor. The tailor, whose name was Julian, was speechless. He'd never managed an entire wedding on his own before. This was a major promotion. My word, of course, was law. Julian was officially put in charge of my wedding. Determined to create the most spectacular event for his handsome new client, he poured all his energy into the venue. Since money was no object, he went for pure, unadulterated luxury. Julian threw himself into the work. When the time came for the bride's fitting, he was so busy with the venue that he simply sent a couple of his assistants. It was only later that he wondered if perhaps the bride hadn't liked the gown I had selected. When his assistants returned, he asked which gown the bride had chosen. They told him she had selected a couture gown in a deep navy blue. Julian was a little disappointed, but he had to admit it was a stunning choice, so he thought no more of it. On the morning of the wedding, I sent a single text message to Bianca. Bianca stared at the gown laid out on her conference table, then at the message on her phone, and proceeded to smash everything within reach in her office. Her assistant watched in terror, wondering what her boss could have possibly done to Mr. Wright to provoke such a bizarrely cruel response. Sending her a gown for his wedding and insisting she attend. Bianca finally stopped her rampage and turned to her assistant. Are you absolutely certain he received the photos? The assistant nodded emphatically. Positive. I had a courier deliver them directly into his hands. The courier confirmed he opened the package in front of him. He definitely saw them. This only confirmed the assistant's theory. I had known about Amelia and Leo all along. Seeing the state her boss was in, the assistant asked hesitantly, so, are you still going to the wedding? Bianca's head snapped towards her. Of course I'm going. He wants me there, doesn't he? The assistant nodded. Understood. I'll clear your schedule. On the day of the wedding, Julian was a nervous wreck. He looked at the groom standing before him and had to take a deep breath. He had seen me in the tuxedo before, but today, I was simply breathtaking. Everything is ready, he said, his voice trembling slightly. You'll follow my lead. We're about to enter the hall. Julian gave me a few last-minute instructions, his voice low and reassuring. He listened intently to his earpiece, then guided me to the entrance of the grand ballroom. He checked the time one last time and spoke into his mic. The groom is entering. The large doors swung open, and I began my slow walk towards the center of the room, my steps perfectly in time with the music. A small flower girl scattered petals before me. As I walked, the system's voice echoed in my mind. Host, what happens if the female lead actually shows up? Are you really going to marry her? If you go through with this. I came to a stop at the center of the aisle and tilted my head slightly. My eyes found Bianca, seated in the front row. She was wearing the white gown I had sent her. She looked magnificent. A slow, triumphant smile spread across my face. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as they took in the sight of the groom. The sound was audible, a testament to my stunning appearance. Bianca's assistant, sitting beside her, was also staring wide-eyed. She had met me before, but today was different. After a moment, she noticed something else. She leaned over and whispered to her boss, "Ma'am, I think your dress and Mr. Wright's tuxedo, they're a matching set." The assistant remembered that I had been the one to send the dress. Bianca froze. She looked more closely at my tuxedo, then down at her own gown. The pearl accents, the floral embroidery, they were a perfect match. They were designed as a pair. The assistant was confused. "Do you think he sent you the wrong dress by mistake?" Bianca looked up at me, standing at the altar. A mistake? No. She knew me better than that. This was deliberate. She just didn't know why. I stood there, smiling serenely, as if nothing were out of the ordinary. Julian, who had been about to follow me down the aisle, happened to glance into the crowd and saw Bianca. His eyes widened. It wasn't her beauty that caught his attention, but her dress. It was the matching gown. The gown I had insisted on buying without alterations. Julian froze, the memory of my strange smile when I'd selected the gown flashing in his mind. He then pictured the actual bride, Amelia, in her navy blue dress. A wild, impossible thought began to form in his mind. No, it couldn't be. Just as he was starting to panic, a voice crackled in his earpiece. "Bride is ready for entrance. Cue the bride," he repeated into his mic. Julian turned to look at the main doors, a sense of dread washing over him. As he had feared, they remained closed. A murmur began to spread through the guests as they realized the bride was missing. Julian glanced worriedly at me, but I remained at the altar, perfectly calm, a serene smile on my face. Julian's heart hammered against his ribs. Then, the dreaded words came through his earpiece. "We can't find the bride. She's gone." Strangely, a sense of calm washed over Julian. "Find her," he ordered quietly into his mic. Amelia's parents were growing visibly anxious. Mr. Hamilton stood up, craning his neck towards the back of the hall. "What's taking her so long?" he hissed at his wife. Mrs. Hamilton, though also frowning, tried to remain composed. "Perhaps it's part of the show," she suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. Her words did little to soothe him. He remained standing, his anxiety palpable. After 10 long minutes, my own parents began to look concerned, shooting increasingly hostile glances at the Hamiltons. Mr. Hamilton, forcing a smile, beckoned to Bianca. "Bianca, could you go check on her? See what the holdup is?" Bianca, who had been watching the proceedings with a strange sense of foreboding, glanced at me, then nodded and headed backstage. The moment she was out of the main hall, she could hear the staff whispering frantically. "Did the bride really run away? I can't believe it. They've been engaged forever. I've never seen this happen before. That poor Mr. Wright." Bianca frowned and went to the bridal suite. It was empty. She tried calling Amelia's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Her assistant had followed her. "Ma'am, what should we do?" Bianca just frowned and tried the number again. Back in the ballroom, the guests were growing restless, their whispers growing louder. "She must have run off." "I think so. I saw the staff searching for her." "But why? This wasn't an arranged marriage. This is so embarrassing for the Hamiltons. If she didn't want to marry him, she should have said so before today. And poor Mr. Wright, being left at the altar like this. The Wrights really drew the short straw with this family." I listened to the rising tide of gossip and decided the time was right. I scanned the room until my eyes met Julian's. I gave him a subtle smile and beckoned him over with a single finger. Julian, who was listening to the frantic reports of the missing bride in his earpiece, saw my gesture. He looked around, realized I was signaling to him, and quickly made his way to the stage. "Mr. Wright?" he asked, his voice hushed. I smiled gently. "We're changing the bride." Julian's eyes widened in disbelief. I patted his shoulder. "You remember the dress? The woman wearing it. She's the new bride." Julian stared at me for 2 seconds, the sounds of the guests pitying me filling the air. He frowned, then gave me a sharp, determined nod and turned, heading backstage. He remembered seeing Bianca head that way. "Stop, Miss Sterling," he commanded into his mic. "Don't let her leave the backstage area." Kira watched the chaos unfold, her brow furrowed. "What the hell is Amelia thinking?" she muttered to Chloe. "How could she humiliate Ethan like this?" Chloe shook her head, her face an unreadable mask. "I don't know. Something about her friend's demeanor felt off." Kira leaned closer. "This wasn't your doing, was it?" she whispered. Chloe gave her a look but said nothing. Kira slapped her own thigh in realization, then, noticing the curious glances from nearby guests, lowered her voice. "What did you do?" Chloe's voice was flat. "I simply informed her that Leo's mother had taken a turn for the worse. What she chose to do with that information was up to her." Just as Bianca was about to head back to the main hall, her path was blocked by several staff members. She frowned. Her assistant stepped forward. "What is the meaning of this?" The staffer looked just as confused. "Ma'am, please, just wait here for a moment. Just 2 minutes." Sensing something was wrong, the assistant was about to push past them. But just then, Julian rushed up, stopping directly in front of Bianca. "Ma'am," he said, slightly out of breath, "are you aware that the gown you are wearing is the matching bridal gown for the groom's tuxedo?" Bianca stared at him, stunned. She had suspected as much, but she still didn't understand why. Julian continued, his voice firm. "Which means you are today's bride." The assistant's jaw dropped. They had come to attend a wedding, not star in one. Bianca's eyes narrowed. "Did Ethan send you?" Julian nodded. "Mr. Wright's instructions were that the woman wearing this gown is the bride. Ma'am, if you'll come with me, I'll have a stylist do a quick touch-up. Also, do you have any photos of yourself? I need to replace the ones in the displays." The assistant snapped out of her shock. "I have some," she said, stepping forward. "I'll send them to you." Julian grabbed a nearby staffer. "Get her contact info and have her send you the photos. Now." Then he turned back to Bianca. "Miss Sterling, if you'll come with me, we need to get you ready for your entrance." Bianca felt like she was in a dream as she followed Julian. Standing at the entrance to the ballroom, the whole situation felt surreal. She watched him barking orders into his headset, and he turned to look at her. "Miss, your full name, please? I need to change the name on the LED screens." Bianca handed him her business card. "And you should give your card to my assistant. I'll be sure to send any future business your way." Julian felt like he had just won the lottery. He beamed at her. "Miss Sterling, it's time. Are you ready?" He looked towards the doors and spoke into his mic. "Ready for bridal entrance in 3, 2, 1. The doors swung open, and Bianca was still in a daze. She took a deep breath, feeling more nervous than she had before closing a billion-dollar deal. The moment she stepped into the light, every head in the room turned. A wave of shock and confusion washed over the guests. Wasn't the bride supposed to have run away? Her eyes met mine, and she saw the triumphant, cunning glint in my smile. A slow, answering smile spread across her own face, and she began her walk down the aisle. Old Mr. Sterling had been growing increasingly agitated. He had invited all his friends and relatives to his grandniece Amelia's wedding, figuring it was the only family wedding he was likely to see in his lifetime, given his own daughter's aversion to marriage. But now, the ceremony had started, and the bride was nowhere to be seen. It was an unacceptable way to treat the poor young man. He was deeply disappointed in his son-in-law and his wife. They had clearly failed in raising their daughter. He was just about to gather his relatives and leave in protest when someone called out to him. "Uncle, isn't that Bianca?" "Yes, but why is she the bride? I thought it was Amelia's wedding today." Puzzled, they all turned to look at the large LED screen at the front of the hall. It now read, "Welcome to the wedding of Bianca Sterling Ethan Wright." The old man thought he was going deaf. "What?" he boomed. "Who did you say is getting married?" "It's Bianca, Uncle. Look, that's her up there at the altar." The old man turned, and though his years were many, his eyesight was still sharp. He saw, clear as day, his own daughter, Bianca, standing at the altar. A huge, booming laugh erupted from him. "Ha ha ha ha. My girl is finally getting married. Nobody leaves. The food and drinks are on me." The younger members of the family exchanged uneasy glances. Something was clearly very wrong with this situation. A last-minute bride swap? It was bizarre. But the old man was so overjoyed that no one dared to question it. After all, he and Bianca were the ones who ran the family. There was nothing to do but plaster on a smile and offer congratulations. So, a chorus of congratulations rose up from the family table. The old man was beaming, his smile stretching from ear to ear. Ha 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 ha, a perfect match. I never thought I'd live to see this day. Everyone, eat, drink, and be merry. Amelia's mother stared at the stage in disbelief, her brow furrowed. Why is Bianca up there? Where is Amelia? She turned to the large photo displays and saw that they now featured pictures of Bianca. She turned to her husband in a panic. What is going on? Mr. Hamilton's face was a mask of controlled fury. He was about to declare the whole thing a farce when a member of the wedding staff approached their table. Excuse me, sir, ma'am, the staffer said politely. I'm afraid we'll have to ask you to move. This table is reserved for the bride's immediate family. He gestured behind him, where old Mr. Sterling was already being escorted to the table. Mr. Hamilton looked at his father-in-law with despair. Dad, what are you doing? Don't encourage this. The old man glared at him. Me adding to the chaos? You're the ones who made this mess. Now move along. Don't get in the way of me talking to my new in-laws. With that, Mr. Sterling walked over to my parents' table. Mr. and Mrs. Wright, he said, extending a hand. I'm Arthur Sterling, Bianca's father. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. My parents, though utterly bewildered, were too well-mannered to be rude. They shook his hand warmly. Mr. Sterling made himself right at home, sitting down and waving for them to do the same. Sit, sit. We can chat for a bit before you have to go up on stage, Mrs. Wright. The Hamiltons had been relegated to a table with the other relatives. Mrs. Hamilton turned to her husband, her face grim. Call that foolish girl and tell her to get back here right now, or she's going to lose her husband for good. As the ceremony proceeded, a few of the Sterling relatives couldn't resist twisting the knife, smirking at the humiliated Hamiltons. Well, well, David, one of them said to Mr. Hamilton. Did your Amelia forget she was getting married today? Mr. Hamilton seethed, his anger mixed with a growing sense of dread. His son-in-law was about to become his brother-in-law, and he was the laughingstock of the entire wedding. He found himself blaming me. If I hadn't pulled this stunt, his family wouldn't be in this humiliating position. The other men at the table, who had been his rivals for decades, knew exactly what he was thinking. Some people are just so selfish, one of them sneered. Can't control their own daughter, so they blame everyone else. It's pathetic. Everyone in our circle knows she was parading that boy around before Ethan even came back. I saw them together myself several times. He seemed like a common little thing. I have no idea what she saw in him. Maybe that's why she ran off today. Don't you worry, though. Maybe she'll bring him home to meet you properly, and you'll have a new son-in-law after all. Mr. Hamilton's face went white. He looked at his wife, bewildered. Weren't their daughter and Ethan in love? Where had this other man come from? Mrs. Hamilton's expression remained stony, but her frown deepened. She said nothing. On the other side of the room, my mother came to the stage and held out her arm. I took it obediently, offering her a small smile. Instead of leading me forward, she stopped and looked at me, her eyes full of concern. Ethan, if this isn't what you want, you don't have to go through with it. We can leave right now. I'll handle everything. I knew how much that meant coming from her. My mother, a dedicated research scientist, lived and breathed her work. My father had handled all the wedding negotiations. She had barely said a word. But today, with her colleagues and supervisors from the university in attendance, a public scandal would be deeply humiliating for them. Mom, it's okay. I don't dislike her, I said, my voice soft. Look at her dress. It was always meant to be a matching set with my tuxedo. My mother looked over at Bianca. She had an air of strength and integrity, and after hearing her father speak so proudly of her, my mother had already begun to admire her. But her first priority was her son's happiness. If you like her, then I'm happy for you, she said firmly. But if she ever treats you poorly, you come straight to us. You don't have to put up with anything from anyone. I smiled, my eyes growing misty. I've never been good at accepting kindness. Satisfied, my mother finally led me down the aisle. When we reached Bianca, my mother looked her straight in the eye. You be good to my son, she said, her voice low but firm, or you'll have to answer to me. Bianca's expression was equally serious. I will, Mom, she promised. I couldn't help but smile at the serious exchange between the two most important women in my life. My mother placed my hand in Bianca's, and as we turned to face the officiant, she smiled and stepped down from the stage. Old Mr. Sterling's eyes were also glistening. He stood as my mother returned to the table. Please sit, he said warmly. My father had already been speaking with him and had gotten a sense of the Sterling family dynamics. He was relieved to learn that Bianca was financially independent, that we would have our own home, and that the extended family was largely dependent on her. meaning they were unlikely to cause us any trouble. In his mind, the Sterlings were already a vast improvement over the Hamiltons. The thought of them made his expression darken. Their behavior today had been appalling. When Amelia had disappeared, they hadn't offered a single word of apology, nor had they made any effort to find her. They had simply left me to be humiliated. My father wasn't a man to hold a grudge, but this he would remember. The officiant, a charismatic man handpicked by Julian, was skillfully smoothing over the awkwardness of the situation, and in a few moments, had the crowd laughing and cheering. When it came time for a family member to speak, he invited Mr. Sterling to the stage. The old man went up happily, looking dapper in a vintage tuxedo he'd worn for the occasion. He took the microphone, beaming. "I am so happy to be here today for my daughter's wedding. I honestly never thought I'd see this day. With her personality, I thought she'd be married to her work forever. Ever since she was a little girl, all she wanted to do was take over the family business and make me proud. And she has." He went on for some time, and as I listened, I glanced over at Bianca. She felt my eyes on her and turned, offering me a small, private smile. "If he starts telling embarrassing stories from my childhood," she whispered, "you're not allowed to listen." I grinned. "Oh, in that case, I'll have to make sure I ask him for all the details later." She tightened her arm around my waist, her thumb tracing a slow circle on the back of my hand. "If you're that eager to hear them," she murmured in my ear, "I'll tell you myself tonight." I just smiled and turned my attention back to her father. He didn't speak for much longer, but he ended with a bang. "And on this joyous occasion, I would like to make one final announcement. I will be gifting 10% of my personal shares in Sterling Industries to my new son-in-law, Ethan Wright." A shocked gasp went through the crowd. The officiant was now prompting us to exchange rings. Kira looked at Chloe's pale, stony face and didn't dare to speak. Chloe stared at the stage, her mind reeling. If it had been Amelia up there, she could have understood it, could have eventually accepted it. But Bianca? Where had she come from? Kira sighed, watching her friend suffer the consequences of her own actions. "Maybe you should call Amelia," she suggested tentatively. "Get her to come back. At least it would stop the wedding. They're about to be pronounced husband and wife." Chloe frowned. The thought had crossed her mind. But if Amelia came back now and caused a scene, what would that do to me? She couldn't bear to put me in another humiliating position, so she did nothing. As for Amelia, it didn't matter anymore. She was surely out of my life for good. But Chloe was still my friend. Seeing her friend's silence, Kira tried another tack. "It's just the ceremony anyway. They haven't signed a marriage license. It's not too late. Don't give up hope." At that, Chloe's expression seemed to relax slightly. It was true. There was no marriage license. This wasn't legally binding. Perhaps I had just asked Bianca to stand in to avoid a public spectacle. A wave of regret washed over her. If only she had been brave enough to step forward earlier. Maybe she would be the one standing up there with me now. What none of them knew was that Amelia had, in fact, returned. But she couldn't even get past the front gate. Julian, ever the professional, had anticipated this possibility. A returning bride would turn the event from a drama into a farce. He would not allow me to be further humiliated, nor would he allow such a disaster to tarnish his professional reputation. He had stationed his staff at every entrance, armed with a photo of Amelia, with strict instructions not to let her in. Bianca's assistant, who had been helping Julian coordinate, overheard this and immediately called in a team of Bianca's personal bodyguards. They formed a human wall at the main gate. Not even a fly could get through, let alone the original bride. When Amelia finally arrived, breathless and frantic, she was met with an impassable wall of security. "Excuse me," she said, trying to push through. "Let me pass." The wall of men didn't budge. "No one is permitted to enter," the head of security said flatly. "I'm in a hurry," Amelia insisted. "Who are you people? What's going on in there?" "There is a private event in progress," he replied. "No disturbances are allowed." Amelia stared at him, incredulous. "I am the bride. How can they have a wedding without me?" The guard looked her up and down, his expression skeptical. "If you were the bride, you wouldn't be out here. The ceremony has already begun." Amelia sighed in frustration. "I had an emergency," she explained, trying to keep her voice calm. "I had to step out. Please, you have to let me back in. The wedding can't proceed without me." The guard remained impassive, not even deigning to look at her. Amelia reached for her phone to call for help, but realized she must have left it inside. Just then, she spotted one of Julian's assistants, the one who had helped with her dress fitting. She called out to him. "Excuse me," she called. "Can you please tell these men who I am? I'm the bride. You have to let me in." The assistant looked over, took in the scene, and walked towards them. Amelia felt a wave of relief. Finally, someone who could clear this up. But when the assistant reached them, he simply glanced at the security line, then pointed to one of the other staffers standing behind them. You come with me. The bride and groom are starting their toasts, and we're short-staffed inside. The staffer he had pointed to stepped out of the line, and it was only then that Amelia realized the second wall of people behind the bodyguards was composed entirely of wedding staff. Thanks for your hard work, guys, the staffer said to the security team. I'll bring you out some wedding cake later. The head of security just nodded and resumed his post. Amelia was dumbfounded. What is going on? I'm the bride. How can the groom be making toasts without me? Bianca and I began making our rounds, toasting each table. When we reached the Hamiltons' table, my smile tightened. Neither Mr. nor Mrs. Hamilton stood to greet us. Bianca frowned. David, she said, addressing her brother-in-law. He just grunted in response. His wife remained seated, her expression like stone. I wasn't fazed. I simply smiled and beckoned Julian over. He quickly came to my side, handed me 2 thick envelopes, and took my champagne flute. I smiled and placed the envelopes on the table in front of them. I suppose this is the part where I'm supposed to start calling you by your new titles. A special wedding gift for my new brother and sister-in-law. The other guests at the table noted the thickness of the envelopes, their eyebrows raised. Was this some kind of peace offering? All eyes were on me. I straightened up, and Bianca moved closer, a protective arm around my waist. Seeing Mr. Hamilton's dismissive sneer, I just smiled. Why don't you open them? Perhaps you'll feel better once you see what's inside. With that, Bianca and I turned to the other relatives at the table, who, unlike the Hamiltons, were eager to greet us and quickly rose to their feet. My words, and my calm demeanor, clearly unnerved Mr. Hamilton. Fearing some kind of trick, he tore open his envelope. The other guests at the table, sensing drama, all leaned in for a closer look. The contents of the envelope spilled out onto the table. Photographs, dozens of them, all intimate snapshots of Amelia and Leo. A gasp from someone at the table drew the attention of those nearby. Soon, everyone could see the pictures, and their gazes turned to the Hamiltons, now filled with scorn and pity. Mrs. Hamilton, frowning, opened her own envelope. It contained another stack of photos, the same 2 people in a variety of different, equally intimate settings. Her face, if possible, grew even darker. I waited until I was sure everyone had gotten a good look, then put on a look of mock surprise. Oh dear, it seems I've given you the wrong envelopes. I turned to Julian and took 2 much thinner, standard envelopes from him. These are the ones. My apologies. Beside me, Bianca shook her head, a small, amused smile on her lips. She was learning just how vengeful I could be, and she noted, with some admiration, that I made no move to retrieve the mistaken photos. As we moved on to the next table, I paused beside Mr. Hamilton and leaned in to whisper in his ear. Sir, I gave your daughter a chance. She chose to throw it away and leave me at the altar for another man. Please deliver a message for me. Tell her to never show her face to me again. Mr. Hamilton's face was ashen. He hastily swept the photos off the table and, under the weight of the entire room's stares, pulled his wife to her feet and fled the reception. With the Hamiltons gone, a palpable sense of relief and festivity returned to the room. After the reception, Bianca and I saw our parents off in the parking lot. Once they were gone, we got into her car and drove to her home. As her assistant drove, she marveled at her own efficiency. She had managed to oversee the dramatic turn of events at the wedding while simultaneously arranging for Bianca's penthouse to be redecorated for a wedding night. She hoped her boss would appreciate the effort enough to give her a bonus. When we arrived at Bianca's penthouse, we said goodnight to her assistant and went inside. The moment she opened the door, my eyes widened. The entryway was decorated with a heart made of rose petals. The walls were adorned with festive wedding decorations. The lighting was soft and warm, and the coffee table was laden with celebratory sweets. I walked into the bedroom and found it similarly transformed, with a new silk comforter on the bed and red balloons floating near the ceiling. I couldn't help but laugh. I turned to look at Bianca, who was taking in the scene with a raised eyebrow. Then, she pushed me back onto the bed and climbed on top of me. All right, she said, her voice a low purr. Tell me, when did you start planning all this? I raised an eyebrow. Planning what? She toyed with a lock of my hair. Planning to make me your bride, of course. I laughed. I was just trying to make Amelia uncomfortable. Who knew she would actually run away? Even I didn't see that coming. She looked into my eyes, clearly not buying it. Why me? I tilted my head, pretending to give the question serious thought. Well, I said slowly, I did consider other candidates. Her grip on my waist tightened, and she stared down at me, her eyes blazing. I don't care who else you considered. From now on, you only get to think about me. No one else. A wide, Happy smiles spread across my face. She smiled back, but her expression remained intense. Do you hear me? I laughed and nodded, loud and clear.